Let's try that again. I'm not sure what happened the first time.
I am just picturing you absolutely like, oh my God, like, like Mrs. Doubtfire.
No, well, just far from it. 'Cause I think well, for those, obviously, people won't understand. So we record this live, obviously, hence why occasionally the odd swear word and the occasional rant and many a tangent takes place, which is what this is. And then we edit, well, we don't even edit it, and then we just throw it up on the podcast channel. But yeah, I couldn't work out why I started recording and it was coming out my Sonos in the ceiling. And so I don't know what happened there. I could hear you. But anyway,
It's even more weird because I was like, I'm here if you are.
yeah, and then exactly that, and then I looked over my shoulder, going, "Where the hell is she coming from?" Anyway, apologies for that, everybody. Welcome to the Grain Blast. It is Monday, the 24th of November. All day, you join myself and the goddess of grain herself, Angie, where Angie will be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows, market moving news in agricultural markets. But before we hand over to the amazing Angie herself, I'll get the technical boring out of the way. So as I've just said, these are recorded live. So apologies for what happens because no one knows. And also, obviously, nothing we say here is trading or investment advice. Nothing we say is an endorsement. If anything was an endorsement, we would make it very bloody clear. In fact, I'm going to do 2 endorsements. Check out the PIQ suite platforms. It's a very, very good, if I do say so myself, information aggregation platform, and it's pretty much free. And also check out Angie and Carl's Consus ad consulting stuff on Substack, etc., because the quality is phenomenal and she doesn't charge very much for it. And she needs to change that. Until she does, get involved.
Yeah, get in at the ground floor level, right?
before she rises up.
Oh my gosh, that's what I always say to anyone. Like if they call, they're like, "I'm interested in your services or whatever." And I'm like, "Well, guess what? I am the lowest pressure salesperson you'll ever run into."
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but I know for a fact that sometimes if you give a free trial, you sometimes just can't even be asked to stop.
it just goes on for eternity. I'm just like, oh. But anyway, happy Monday. Welcome. I am being sucked into the black hole that is holiday mode, and I am trying not to. But Colton doesn't have school this week either. And so, yeah, like they give them the whole week off, and all the teachers are like, "Are you excited for vacation?" And I just kind of laugh maniacally, and they look at me weird. But I'm like, "Yeah, sure, vacation sounds cool." But yeah, so he's off for the week. Like it's Thanksgiving. I just ordered. We're gonna do the heat and take from the Cracker Barrel on Thursday. Like I am pumped, man. I can't. So here we are. It's Monday, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we do move on, this is Angie that put up her quote winter lights, watching his Christmas lights the day after Halloween. So
now they can switch to Christmas. Yes, I put the outside lights up. So we're ready to rock and roll. At least I am for holiday season. And yeah, so but focus, right, Angela? Let's pay attention to what's going on because there is a lot going on. First things first, we're talking about the peace plan, right? We talked about this a little bit on Friday, and I had said on Friday, I was like, God, this sounds kind of oddly like something we have heard before. Turns out we pretty much had and there was some back and forth over the weekend, which you're not going to hear anything about that because I think it just muddies the water anymore. But you saw it over the weekend where it was like Rubio and had a conversation with several congressmen or whatever, a handful of congressmen out there that he kind of admitted, I'm using air quotes, you can't see them, that it was a Russian document. And then they're like, no, it's not a Russian document. It's a document that we came up with just simply because it sounds like everything that Russia said they needed.
It's purely coincidental.
Not. This is just a coincidence, dude.
It's like, this is my homework, not my friends.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Just because you've seen this paper before, like a year ago, doesn't mean that I stole it and wrote it, which is whatever. We know what what it's going to take for peace with Russia. Like they want the Donbass region, they want the portion of, don't ask, I forget that there's two one, they have pretty much everything and the other one, they don't. They, and they want all of the other one. Like there's two portions of it where they're like, mine, please. They want the recognition of Crimea. They want Ukraine to say that they'll never join NATO, to cut the size of their military, to guarantee that there will not be any European or U.S. troops, NATO troops on your Ukrainian soil. Like all of these things we've already heard before. And that was really what came out of the 28-point plan. And so we got the plan over the weekend, and Zelensky on Friday, like the Trump administration was like, you have until Wednesday, now Thursday to figure it out, and Zelensky's basically like, the hardest choice in my career. Do we lose a good partner or do we, stand up? Like otherwise, basically to just accept the plan as it is. A lot of folks had said it, and I agree. It's pretty much forced capitulation to a certain extent. Now, having said that, right, like the Ukraine is on its back foot in a lot of ways. Like 70% of its energy infrastructure has been damaged in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's all old, antiquated electrical grid systems anyway. And so like they're struggling to find replacement equipment and all of these other things. And it's just going to get more difficult for them to rebuild. And if they go through a winter like this, like they are in a situation where it isn't the greatest, right? But also Russia, to a certain extent, could say the same. You've got fuel shortages, you've got refinery attacks, you've got all of these sanctions that are starting to bite, you've got all of these different things that are happening. Both countries are straight up not having a good time, but neither one obviously is going to just be like, well, I'll give you everything you want. Now, is there a reasonable source of peace in the sense that we could freeze the battle lines as they are, maybe just allow Ukraine to do its thing, guarantee like the one thing in this that is there is Russia is supposed to basically put into their constitution or make it a law that they can't attack Ukraine or the EU or the European nations, yada, yada, yada. And so, like, there are points in it, and that's what people are saying. Like, I think it's been trimmed down to like 19 points right now. There's a conversation that, we're going to have points that we can agree upon to get to the ceasefire and then do the other things, like, so there's kind of some talk maybe that we are closer in progress than we have been before. But I have a feeling that, basically similar to the past, like Russia has already stated what it wants. Basically what it is saying are what needs to happen, and what Ukraine is saying what can't happen are the same things to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We'll see. I feel like is this the fourth time that we've been on the cusp of peace in the Black
Oh,
Sea?
eh,
It's
I,
here.
I feel like it's got to be more than that, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, like I mean, that, and so we'll see. I don't want to sit here and say, "Oh, this time it isn't going to work." I don't want to come in as a negative Nelly by any means, because
I
I
get
don't
it.
know. I don't know what the inner workings are, and like I said, Ukraine is in a bit more of a difficult situation simply because you are starting to see more attacks pushed to the west. You have seen the damage to the energy grid. You are seeing damage to their infrastructure, their logistical infrastructure. Like the attacks on their railways have increased threefold since the start of July.
Yeah.
And like Ukraine moves over 65% of its cargo via train.
Yeah.
So you are seeing these sort of things happen in their exports and yada yada. So we'll see how it plays out. Both countries really are angling towards peace. Neither really want to go into the winter, but we have a lot of things that we have to work out. And I still have this feeling that Russia's going to be like, that's great, but it's not acceptable to us. So then the question comes, does Ukraine just kind of, like I said, give up some of these things that they've straight up said they aren't going to? We did see Odessa port infrastructure hit overnight. Another energy, other energy infrastructure was targeted. Ukraine hit a refinery in the Moscow Oblast, which is of interest. There's several different little things happening that we've got to watch there, but we'll see. Are we able to swing a ceasefire, by agreeing to a dozen points and then working on the other ones? I don't know. But the one thing I do find interesting, and this will be my last point on this, is everyone's acting like it's going to be bearish to commodities. Like all of a sudden we're going to have this free flow of commodities that we didn't
Right.
have before if the war is resolved. Girlfriend, they've been moving commodities. Like that's not going to change. Like we're already factoring in an increase in exports out of both countries, neither of which I believe will happen because of the war itself. But we're already anticipating, basically a lack. Like we're not reducing production. We're not reducing exports because of the war anymore. Maybe versus 2021 or whatever, but Ukraine also had a massive crop in 2021 that kind of skews some of the data. But, when it comes down to it, is it going to markedly change the way grain flows into the global pipeline if there is a peace deal? No. No, there isn't. Like you might be able to see some risk premium back off a little bit on freight and some of these other things, but beyond that, it's not going to be a big mover. Next thing we're watching, we did see Secretary Rollins say on the news this morning, she woke up and had a press run. She was on, I think, Fox and another one. I'm not sure which one. ABC, NBC, CNBC. And so she said that the secretary, she said China's soybean purchases, there'll be an inking of that deal this week or next. So we'll see something like that, something done there. And then we'll also have an announcement on farmer aid in the next week or two, apparently. And then in addition to that, we did see Xi and President Trump talk over the phone this morning. I haven't seen, no one's seen any details on it. Just basically both parties, or the Chinese side has said that they had a conversation. We did see at the end of the week last week, Trump kind of indicate that he's open to getting the NVIDIA H200 or whatever, you know what one I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
So he talked that they have interest, or they are looking at possibly sending that over to China. Over the weekend, I think it was Lutnick that was like, "Oh, there's no way those would get in bad hands. It's totally fine."
Well, sorry. It's come for the analysis on agricultural markets. Stay for the impressions.
Right? That's exactly it. That was my Lutnick impression. You should see, it sounds pretty much like my Besant impression too, except for this is more at the start of anything he says. But yeah, so we'll see. They are saying that there is going to be a deal announced. We have been seeing purchases. Like, we can't say that we haven't been. And then there was some talk on at the end of the day on Friday that we were going to see some arbitrage, basically, which is my favorite word, not to be confused with the BC Boys song Sabotage, though you can sing
which happens to be which is my favorite song of all time. Did you know that?
No, what is?
Sabotage.
Really? It is your favorite song? It is one of my favorites. I actually jammed to Paul Revere to start the day this morning. But anyway.
Well, we did warn people at the start of the show that we digress.
Yes, we do. We warn. But yeah, so we'll see the arbitrage. There's rumors that there's arbitrage happening with Argentina soybeans and U.S. beans. And so one of the things that's super fun about physical grain is that you can sell grain. You can sell the same bushel more than once. And a lot of people be like, what? But you can. You can do it. You can basically, like, what we could see happen in this sort of instance would be that Argentina, like an Argentina exporter, would sell bushels into China. It would probably be an ABCD, an ADM, Cargill, Bunge, Dreyfus, mostly Dreyfus, ADM, or Cargill. But, they could sell that and say, yep, we're going to ship you beans from Argentina to China in November at this value, yada, yada, yada. Well, fast forward, market structure changes, Argentina's basis goes up. It makes more sense to leave the bushels in Argentina and maybe ship the bushels from the U.S. to China instead. You know what I mean? So a lot of people will be like, well, Argentina's going to need to import soybeans. Not necessarily. We could get out around that to where they could keep the beans to home. The ownership stays where it's at, and you basically facilitate the contract via other origins. Like, a lot of times when you write up an export contract, you may have optional origin contracts where they could decide that they want to buy it from the U.S. later on because it's better or whatever. So we'll see. But that was some of the rumblings there on Fridays, that we were seeing some facilitation of the U.S. trade deal, via this sort of arbitraging of Argentina beans, U.S. beans, whatever. And like I said, that's what makes physical grain fun. Last thing on the subject of China. Well, for China, more folks are starting to pay attention to the problems that came up this fall with heavy rain and the damage of quality, and the concern that we have over, just what's going to happen in parts of China's northern provinces. Henan, Shandong, a handful of those had some, major flooding, major quality issues. They're not set up to dry like we are in the U.S. They're not able to, even stop the damage once it starts. Like, if you've got cob corn, just because you've gotten it out of the field, if you haven't dried it down, if the weather is not conducive to, kind of maintaining that quality, if it's still moist, if it's still cool, if it's still all of these things, you're going to struggle with mold and toxins and all of these problems. And that's what you're seeing. And so we've seen this sort of continuation all of a sudden, or this move from, less than a third of China's corn being purchased that's being offered at auctions to, like, the last several have been 100% clearance. Prices continue to kind of rise. There's some uncertainty over what exactly is happening there. And so we'll want to watch, because China is really good at kind of being like, yeah, we'll do a trade deal with you at a time that it is most beneficial to them internally too. And so to have like their stocks being drawn down of wheat and of corn, to have quality become questionable of the corn, to have wheat planting be as late as what it was. Like we're talking a week ago, they were still saying that there was a portion of the country that was planting wheat. These sort of things could all become, something to watch. And so we might focus all on soybeans in China, but China, may be looking to get some other commodities purchased as well, just to make things look better. So we'll see where we're headed. Right now we're kind of testing the support on everything, or at least we did. 420 on December corn is the lower side of things. We traded down to 422 and a quarter overnight here. We're back up to 425. If we hold and maintain this strength into the end of the day, I figure we'll be to the mid 430 range again before Thanksgiving at the rate we're going. The same for beans. We tested support there, traded down to 1116, 1112 has been 1112 has been the support on the January contract. We're now, up 9 cents from the low, trading 1125. Wheat is going to have the hardest just because everyone thinks peace is, bearish wheat or whatever. But like I said, we're already expecting 2 billion bushel of wheat exports out of both countries. That's the number on paper. So really when it comes down to it, if peace happens, that will help facilitate those level of exports. If it doesn't, then we're gonna have some struggles, I think. So I think that's it. That's all I got. I have plenty of other things to babble about, but no one wants to hear that.
That's just for me and you later on WhatsApp.
Exactly.
Well, Angie, thank you so much as always. Listeners, thank you again as always for tuning in. We really do hope we've put some value into your day and also hopefully put a smile on your face. Who knows? But that's it from us for today. We will see you all tomorrow for more from